17 in my last year of high school. There was a weekend towards the end of the school year where my parents were going away. I saw it as a perfect opportunity to throw an end-of-the-year party. I went to the store and bought 3 big bags of red Solo cups and a bag of ping pong balls, and I paid my older brother, who was 21, to pick up a bunch of beers and liquor. The good thing about my house was that it was in a cul-de-sac, and it had a plot of land dedicated to water collection right behind the backyard, so the chances of a noise complaint were slim. My older brother invited like 10 friends of his own. People started showing up around 9. I basically made it open invite to most people in my grade. By the peak of the night, there were probably 60 to 70 kids in my house. It was more insane than I thought it would be. It got to a point where I started seeing kids I didn't know coming into my house. At that point, I had to put my foot down and start locking the door to avoid randoms from coming in. Every time people would leave, I'd lock the door again. Later in the night, when there were about 20 kids left in my house, my good friend Peter asked me about the guy who went to the upstairs of my house. I questioned what he was talking about, and he told me there was some random guy walking up my stairs about a minute ago. I intended on leaving the upstairs off limits, as the only rooms up there are bedrooms. I ran upstairs and checked all of the bedrooms, which all had the lights off. I checked my bedroom last, which appeared to be empty too. I went back to tell Peter. He said with 100% certainty that someone was still up there. So this time he came up with me to check all of the rooms again, under all the beds and all the closets, but whoever this kid was that Peter saw didn't turn up, so we went back downstairs. I figured Peter was drinking too much and just had no credibility that night. He was one of the few people who I'd be letting crash at my house that night. In fact, Peter crashed on a couch before everyone even left. It was probably 2 in the morning by the time the last of my friends left. My brother was already asleep in his room upstairs, while Peter and my other friend John slept on the couches downstairs. I went upstairs to the bathroom, exhausted but feeling satisfied with the party. As I brushed my teeth and looked at myself in the mirror, through a slight blur from drinking so much, I thought I heard something above me. I turned off my electric toothbrush and listened for the longest time, but there was nothing now. I rinsed up and went to my room, but before I could even crash into bed, I heard another sound from above me. A thump in the ceiling. I went to my brother's bedroom door, but no matter how much I knocked, he wouldn't open his door. I suddenly had the thought to check the attic. For some reason, it took me that long. I got the hook to pull down the stairs to the attic. I'd never actually been in that attic before. After climbing up the stairs into the darkness, I felt around above the floor of the attic and searched for some kind of light switch. My hand knocked into a string, so I pulled it down, and a single dim light flickered on. The center of the attic, where the door was lit nicely by this light, but the outer walls of the attic were all dark. But even in the darkness, I could sense another presence in there. I asked, "Is anybody in here?" And I felt a rush when I saw a box close to the corner fall over, and behind it was someone crouching behind another stack of boxes. It didn't look like a kid. It looked like an adult man, and at the same time, I could hear a plastic bag being brushed up against in another corner of the attic behind me. I jumped off the stairs and slammed the attic door shut. I ran down to my 2 friends to tell them what happened. It took a bit of waking them up for them to fully comprehend what I was screaming at them. Peter told me to call the cops right away, and I did. I guess I needed that second opinion of what to do before actually calling the police. I went back upstairs with my 2 friends to pound on my brother's door, but he still wouldn't answer. I started to worry that something might have happened to him. Cop sirens blared outside, so the 3 of us ran downstairs in relief. An officer and his partner came in and asked where the attic was. I led them to the attic door and opened it for them. They did their thing. They went up with lights in one hand and guns drawn in the other. We were told to wait down in the living room, and not even 2 minutes later, the cops came out of the attic with 2 men who looked to be in their 30s or 40s, and they were disgusting and dangerous looking. Likely homeless and probably crazy as well. They gave us looks as they walked past us. My brother came out of his room soon after to throw up, and when I explained everything to him, he said he slept right through our knocks and bangs on the door. Thankfully, since my brother was 21, he served as the adult in the situation and talked with the police. Because of that, we were able to keep the incident a secret from our parents. I used to go to the University of Idaho before transferring. In my sophomore year, I went to a lot of frat parties. There was one frat party that changed the way I look at college parties, however. I'm gonna leave the name of the frat out of this story, but one of the smaller frats on our campus was having an open party. Free for girls and a $20 charge at the door for guys, so we all had to pay the cover charge. When we got inside, there were definitely a lot of people, but the party overall seemed kind of grimy and sketchy. There were a lot more guys than girls, and it was insanely hot in the house. There seemed to be a couple guys going to a back room, so I figured I'd check it out to see if anything was going on back there. After going through a door to a much quieter section of the house, I saw the same couple of guys go outside. I figured I'd go outside and check out what the party was looking like in the backyard section. When I opened the back door and peered outside, I saw the two guys standing around a fire pit. There was no one else in the backyard. They looked over to me after hearing the door open, I guess, and before I could turn and go back inside, they waved me over. I felt awkward, and I probably should have ignored them and just went back inside, but I felt pressured into walking over to them. They told me to sit down on one of the logs placed around the fire pit. I did so. Then they sat down on two logs and started to light up cigarettes. The two of them sat there not saying a word, just smoking their cigarettes and looking in my general direction. They didn't say anything or even offer me a cigarette. I figured I'd try to start conversation since they called me over, and asked them if they were in the frat. One of them shook their head no, and that was it. I then asked if they knew anybody at this party. This time I didn't even get an acknowledgement of my question. The two just looked at each other and then they looked at me. Now that they were looking at me, they wouldn't look away, and I was becoming increasingly uneasy. One of the two said in a very monotone, slow voice, "That's a nice watch." I looked at the cheap $30 Timex watch on my wrist. It was not a nice watch at all, but maybe to him it looked like one. That same guy got up, and as he started walking over to me, said, "Give me your watch." The other guy got up and started to walk behind me, as if they were surrounding me. I took off my watch in a hurry, saying, "Yeah, sure, no problem." When I got it off, I stood up and handed it to him, but my standing up was just a move to better prepare myself for sprinting to the door of the house. I heard a flick and a swish come from behind me. I associated it to be the sound of a knife being flicked open. The guy behind me said, "Take off your shirt," and that's when I decided it was time to sprint for the door. It took me about 3 seconds to get to the door. I don't know how far they followed me for, or if they even did, but I got back in the house, went back to the front section where the party was, and found my two friends. I told them we had to go and to ask questions later. People were looking at me as I guess I made a scene telling my friends to go. They finally listened and we left the house through the front. Campus was half a mile from that house, so we walked it. On our way back though, at one point I turned around and saw two people walking towards us. I stopped to keep looking. The two people stepped under a street light. It was those two men from the backyard. I told my friends to run and they listened. We ran all the way back to campus and back to our dorms. I told the president of that particular frat about what happened. He promised me they were not associated with those two individuals. Still, I didn't go to any other parties hosted by that frat, and I did take it easy on the partying for a while after that. I used to use the app Tinder a lot, mostly for weekends where I'd have nothing to do and I'd hope to meet up with someone new. One Friday night, my friends Steve, Raj, and I were chilling in my room, bored. I matched someone on Tinder, and she seemed pretty cool based on her pictures and bio. She messaged me first, saying there was a party and to pull up. I asked her for the details, like what town, what time, what address, and she sent the address of a house in a town not far at all. I copy-pasted the address into Maps, and it said it was only 10 minutes away. I asked for her number to text her, and she gave it promptly. We texted for a bit, and it ended off with my telling her we're on our way. My friends were on board with it, so I figured why not. It was better than sitting in my room. I got dressed into jeans and a button-up shirt. My friends just had to go dressed as they were. We called an Uber to drive us up to the house. When we pulled up to the house, it was definitely on the smaller side, and most of the houses there were on the smaller side. So immediately we're thinking ghetto party. I texted the girl, and she said to come in. We started to hear the music blasting inside as we approached the stoop, so that was reassuring. The Uber drove off into the night as we got to the stoop. The girl said to just come in. I opened the door and let ourselves in. We were greeted with the living room, and every adjacent room in the house seemed to be lit up. The music seemed to be coming from another room, but even so, the living room was empty. There was no one in sight, except for a lone, 20-something-year-old punky-looking guy sitting in a chair in the kitchen. I texted the girl again, saying we're inside. She said, come downstairs. I asked, where is downstairs? She said the door right in front of the front door. My friends were laughing, saying this is insanely suspicious and that maybe we should go. I opened the door that was sure enough right in front of me, and it did indeed lead to a basement. There was a blue light that seemed to fill the whole room down there. The music was coming from down there for sure. I walked down each step slowly. Raj followed me, but Steve was for some reason staying at the top step. He called down, let me know what's down there. It was hard to hear anything because the music was literally so loud. I got far enough down the staircase where I could start to see into the basement, and instead of seeing a room packed with people dancing, I saw a line of men leaning against a wall, looking right up at me. Some of them were wearing do-rags, one was wearing a backwards cap, most of them were some kind of minorities. They were leaning against the furthest wall from the stairs, in kind of a blind spot, and all I could think was that it was some kind of trap. Then I heard a commotion come from up the stairs, and I saw Steve having some kind of confrontation with the guy who was sitting in the kitchen. I pushed at Raj to hurry the fuck up those stairs, and when we got to Steve, that man was trying to hold us back. He then started screaming something in Spanish down the stairs, and I witnessed 4 or 5 men running to the stairs from the basement. It was the most horrific moment of my life. We easily overpowered the lone guy holding us back and pushed our way out of the house, all with maybe 2 seconds to spare. We were all in decent shape, thankfully, and we ran as fast and as far away from the house as we could. We had to catch our breath after running full speed for a few minutes. I was the one to call the cops and tell them to check that house immediately. From there, we took an Uber back to my house and spent the rest of the night there. I didn't ever find out what the cops did when they checked the house out. I didn't really think that far ahead when I made that phone call. All I know now is if something seems suspicious on the internet, stay away from it. You never know who you're actually meeting or what you're walking into.